Hello. So, welcome to the Speedy Cute 2D animations in Google Slides talk. So, this is a talk that I've done a few times. I really love sharing accessible tools to people, and I think this is one of the most accessible tools that we can get, really. So, Google Slides is like a free tool that you can use, and I found that it can be an okay way to make some nice, quick 2D animations in it. So here are some of my findings. So today's talk will be relatively relaxed. We're going to have like a small kind of talk section where I'll talk a bit about principles of animation and like what maybe simple character design is all about and things like that. And then we'll have like a workshop element where I'll share the slides that I've got and I've set up kind of like a template that you can use to get started with. But otherwise, you don't have to follow along if you don't want to, but I will live animate something just to show you how it can work. But you're very welcome to follow along. But if you don't want to, that's absolutely okay as well. So it's very low energy, relaxed talk and workshop. So yeah, please feel free to ask questions throughout. I actually don't have the live stream open, so I won't be able to see the questions. But Joe can send me some of the questions through to me. So yeah, please let me know if you have any questions at any point as well. So just a quick introduction to who I am. Hello, I'm Charlotte, and I am a 2D animator and an artist. And I also do production as well in games. So I previously worked in TV animation, and then I pivoted to games because animation was such a mess, and games is the best too sometimes, but that's okay. That's like the nature of creative work at the moment. So I'm absolutely loving it in games, having a great time, making lots of meaningful and wholesome games and things like that. And to like keep the food on the table and stuff, I also teach game design and animation to kids and occasionally adults as well. So that is where I'm at the moment, and it's been such a fantastic journey to get here. So we're going to start off with a few tips. So this is we're going to deep dive now into the kind of like the talk aspect of this. So we're going to talk a bit about what animation is all about and the 12 principles of animation. So I have to preface this with, to be honest, 12 principles are so many, so overwhelming. We're going to probably focus on one thing today. We're probably going to focus on squash and stretch. And I would also advise that if you're also like a kind of starting out animator or somebody who's just kind of starting out in art in general, I would also say that, yeah, it's probably a good idea to focus on one or two of these to start with. I have controversial views about some of these. I think some of them are not very relevant, but that's okay. You can take what you want and leave what you want as well, and see what works for you. And it depends on the kind of games that you're making as well. So we'll talk a bit more about that as we go. So let's have a look at squash and stretch. So squash and stretch is literally about the physics and anatomy of a character. So great characters like Kirby have loads of squash and stretch. You'll see Kirby squishing and squashing, becoming vending machines. I know they're just such a fantastic character to animate with because they have so many different forms, and they're a fantastic example of squash and stretch. So you may not like necessarily perceive this when you see an object like a bouncing ball. You might not actually see this when you see this in daily life, but when you animate, you can always add in that little bit of squash and stretch to make things a bit more lifelike and a bit more lively, and it just seems to help the eye perceive that something is bouncing, or it's like there's like a change in mass and things like that. So squash and stretch, my favorite one to begin with, definitely. Next up, we have anticipation. So that is what we call like a roundup before you do a huge move. So in this case, in the image I've got, the anticipation is crouching down before you stretch out for a jump. And that can also look like, like pulling back before you throw a punch. Anticipation is a fantastic way to tell a viewer or whoever's viewing your animation, or like a player, that something's about to happen, and it can be a great way to let them know that there is a huge movement coming. Great games like Monster Hunter, I know Dark Souls, all of them use anticipation a lot to let the player know that there's something on the way. So that is another principle. Next up, we got staging. This is largely to do with movies, I have to say, but it can also apply to games too. So maybe in a puzzle setting, staging is about where you're supposed to look and guiding the player to exactly what you're supposed to do in a puzzle game. But in the case of other games, I've put Red Dead Redemption here as one of the games, which is was famously known to be quite picturesque. Staging is important because it draws your eye to the right place. It draws your eye to the things that are important. So in this case, maybe I know I'm not sure who is this. Is it Arthur Morgan? Maybe them and their horse is like the main focus point, and then the mountains are like the next thing to look at. And another fantastic way of staging is to split your screen or your, I don't know, whatever resolution you're working on, split it up into 3 parts, and wherever those 3 lines cross is a great way to start figuring out where to place things, because that tends to be where an audience or a player might look. So in this Ratatouille screenshot I've got, we've got the 4 points of where an audience member might look when viewing a screen in particular. So that is staging. Next up, we have straight ahead and pose to pose. So this kind of covers actually 2 different techniques of animation in this like 12 principles. Oh, sometimes the 12 principles are so confusing. So straight ahead is a way of animating. It's great for doing things like effects, like fire, or it can be good for doing, I don't know, like water droplets and those kinds of things. It's just a way we basically just go from frame to frame to frame, and you don't necessarily plan it or like what the next technique is called, which is pose to pose. So pose to pose covers different stages of an animation. So in this image I've got, it covers the anticipation, which is like the wind up where you're like crouching, getting ready to jump. You've got the peak of the jump, and then you've got the landing. So you would put out those poses first, and then you would fill in the in-betweens, or like the frames in between that. So that is what the the two different types of animation comes from. You can use them as you like. Straight ahead is good for some things. Some people prefer it, and pose to pose is good for other things. So it's kind of a matter of what you prefer, and sometimes it's just depending on what you're animating as well. So that is a technique. Next up, we've got follow through and overlapping action. It's one of my favorites, actually. I really like thinking about follow through and overlapping action. Follow through tends to be about, like, you know, in old cartoons when a character slightly overshoots, like if like I don't know, like the Roadrunner is like running really fast and then they break and then they kind of like teeter into the other side of the movement and then come to a stop. That is what follow through is. It kind of shows that things are slowing down or speeding up. And overlapping action is about, I know, adding an extra element. So that might be like a cat's tail that kind of follows the direction of the movement. It follows the same curves of the animation, and it just gives the whole thing a little bit more life. And it just makes things like feel aesthetically very interesting to look at. So that is follow through and overlapping action. And again, we will not be focusing on all of these for today's actual animation side of the workshop. You can have a look at, you can try them out as you go, but yeah, definitely take it easy with them. Pick and choose the ones that you want to focus on. Some of them you can, you know, they don't also apply to everything too. So next up, we have slow in and slow out. This is a little bit about where you place keyframes, so it's a little bit technical, but it is also about how your drawings will start out with the movement being more similar, and then as you go further into your movement, they will get bigger and more different, and then as you kind of ease back into the end of the movement, they'll become more similar and more similar as you get to the end. So that is what slow in and slow out is. It kind of adds like a little bit of dynamism to it. So like how this car is moving really fast and then it comes to like a gradual end. It adds that level of kind of, it feels like a bit more realistic in some ways, that things have this kind of slightly drifty movement to it. Okay, so next up we have arcs. Arcs is great. Arcs is just making sure that you follow a smooth curve with your animations. And that can be really tough sometimes. So I know when you have like perspective things, like in puzzle games, if you've got like an isometric view or something, sometimes it can be really hard to follow arcs. So, you know, take and leave this one and see what you think about it. But arcs can be, they can be used to help inform like really dynamic movement, and it'd be a great way to show off the actual action of a movement too. So when like massive monsters come and swing at you, they're going to swing at you with a huge swinging circular motion to make sure you have enough time to register it, but also because it's very dynamic and it does look pretty amazing. So arcs is a fantastic one to also take a look at. And next up, we have secondary action, kind of a little bit adjacent to follow through and overlapping action. Secondary action is like when you swing an arm back before you knock on a door, which is what the image with the little red circle is all about. So if this person has to do another action before they knock on the door, that is what a secondary action is. And you can kind of build up more and more secondary actions as you go along. So it can be a really helpful way to focus in on something. So if like in this walk cycle, the main thing is the person is walking, but if you wanted to add in some extra funky things to show off how this person's walking, and this person's like maybe doing an angry walk, you can add in the secondary action with the arms swinging really angrily and the mouth being really angry as well. Those are fantastic ways to bring some character and emotion to your animations. What do we got next? We got timing. Oh, timing. We'll cover this more a little bit also. We're going to talk about frames per second. But timing is often about it's something that you unfortunately kind of have to practice and feel out as you animate more and more. But yes, in general, the more drawings you do, the slower your animation is going to be. And in general, the less drawings you do, the faster it's going to be. So you want to figure out how you want to time out your animations, like when the action is happening. Does it have a very slow wind up towards it? So, like, is someone building up a long time before they do like a big jump or something like that? That can be really important depending on what you're animating. So, that is timing. It feels a bit redundant sometimes. Is what I mean when I say the 12 principles of animation can be so confusing sometimes because it's like, well, duh, like timing. But yeah, it's one of the principles where you have to talk about it. Next up is exaggeration. It's one of my favorites. It means you push past the boundaries of a character sometimes, and that can look like how Totoro's chest just inflates bigger than its head, or it can just look like stretching out things to be a little out of the anatomy of a person. And sometimes you can get some really funky poses, funky expressions from that. And you might have seen that like people love taking screenshots of like really weird poses and animations, and oftentimes that is because of exaggeration. So like in the recent film K-pop Demon Hunters, there's like a scene where the like evil boy band are dancing. You can see their legs are going all spaghetti like, and that's a part of exaggeration, is to show their dance moves, but it's also a great way to capture their movement. It can look a little strange and surreal sometimes, but maybe that is the effects that you want to achieve. So that is exaggeration. Next up, solid drawing. Oh gosh. I have to say, like, sometimes the 12 principles just gets me like, what is happening? So in the case of animation, I think what they really mean is that solid drawing is something that will help keep the form and volume of a character that you're drawing. And obviously it's like another duh, like drawing really well will really help your animation. But I'd slightly like to debunk that a bit. I think it's more important that you try it out and have a go at drawing something rather than kind of making sure that this drawing is perfect. So yes, solid drawing in some ways, but also don't worry too much about it. It's better that you try it out and give it a go rather than focusing in on all of these like anatomically correct things and all of this stuff. So, solid drawing, we won't focus on that today. And I think this might be the last one. Yeah, this is appeal. Similar to solid drawing, but I think a bit more relevant. Appeal is how you design your character or how you design your scene, even, and making sure that you're kind of designing a character in the way that you'll focus in on the right things. So that could be like making sure that the facial features are really clear. So, like all of these characters that I've chosen here, or these images, they have relatively simple designs. Like this this like friend on the bike here, they have like a blocky, large, like kind of blocky chest, and it just really highlights the expressions on the face and makes it really clear how they're feeling and things like that. So drawing characters with appeal, it's a little amorphous, I have to say, but also it just means like making sure things are clear and that your player, your audience, whoever's gonna view this is gonna see things clearly. So that is what appeal is about. Okay, so there are the 12 principles of animation. I have to say, there's so many, right? We'll focus mostly on squash and stretch today, but if you do have any other questions regarding like other, I don't know, like other techniques or like any more details you want me to go into on these, please let me know. They are they're interesting in their own way, and it's something to think about, but also don't think too hard about them. Here we go. Next up, we're going to talk a bit about frames per second. I have to say that in games recently, I do feel like that there is a slight bias towards higher frame rates, but I would like to debunk that a bit and really just say that you got to use a frame rate that suits your game. Because unfortunately, the higher a frame rate goes, the more frames you're going to have to draw or the more data you're going to have to process. So if from the start you're like, you know what, let's make a 4 frames per second game, I have the utmost respect for you because I think that's great. um have a think about what art style your game is in. You know, will players even benefit from a higher frame rate? Maybe in a puzzle game where you kind of have to step things out, or there's like a time element, maybe you don't need a high frame rate. It could just be that, you know, you're letting things run after you press space or something. Maybe that doesn't need a high frame rate. So have a think about it. It really depends on your game. And yeah, I don't think there is shame in using lower frames. An additional thing is also to consider your scope as well. If you don't have much time or you've got, you know, very tight timelines for things, I would definitely consider a lower frame rate because yeah, you'll be animating and creating less images, and it will be much easier if you just start from the beginning with a low frame rate. And you can also add in as you go. So if you're like, oh, I'm gonna start on 4 frames per second, and then you're like, oh, actually, maybe I could do more, you can always add more as you go. So I would start with low frames. And another great way to figure out how many frames you might need would just be to maybe consider your keyframes. So maybe if you start out with this character needs to jump and they have just three keyframes of jumping, you could try that out, play it and see how it feels. If it needs more, you can add in more, but yeah, see how it feels, and yeah, feel out your frames per second. I put in some of the kind of frames of Street Fighter here because that is a game that definitely requires high frame rate. So this is a great way to show off that there are so many frames in Street Fighter because they actually really need it. And it's for players to get the intricacies of like hitting hitting each other's characters. So in that case, use high frames. But if you're not doing like a Street Fighter intricate level of fighting, maybe you don't need all those frames. Okay. So I will argue some more about frame rates. This is a fantastic little video animation on, let's see if I could play it actually. Oh no. Give me 1 second. Oh no. Let me see if I can play it through my other screen. One moment. Here we go. Is it playing? I hope so. So this is just a demonstration of what different frame rates can look like. Obviously, 24 frames per second is the smoothest, and it looks kind of the most like true to eye. Like you'll see your regular life 24 frames per second. But I think there is still merit in 8 and 12 as well. So 8 has a slightly like choppier feeling, and 12 has also got its own feeling too. So I'd say it's like it really depends on what you're making. If you're okay with that slightly story feel, what you call it? Not storybook feel. That's it. If you're okay with that storybook kind of feel and you're wanting to give some space to the player and like let them kind of fill in the gaps themselves, that is a great thing to consider 8 frames per second might be really good for your game. So yeah, it's always good to consider what you need for your game and maybe choose a frame rate accordingly. There we go. I hope you're able to see that video. I hope I wasn't just talking over a still image of Shin Ultraman. Okay. And I have some more examples of different frame rates in action here. Unfortunately, there's a lot that are from movies, but there is one of my favorite examples of actually frame rates working together, different frame rates working together, is in the Spider-Verse series. So Miles Morales, I think in the very first movie, I'm not sure in the other movies, or in the next one. In the first movie, he's animated at a lower frame rate than Peter Parker because he is like a more unconfident Spider-Man and he's still learning the ropes of things, whereas Peter Parker is animated at the full 24 frames per second because his movements are smooth. So it's a really interesting and also like fantastic way to apply context to frames per second as well. And in general, I've got like some Sakuga animation, like fight scenes from anime. They are notoriously animated at very low frame rates because they really want to emphasize certain things. And oftentimes there are budget constraints and things like that too in anime. But the way anime does it is by lowering the frame rate lots, showing you the information that you really need to see, but they can still create such dynamism and such action in what they do. And we've got some little game animations here too, like Cuphead. Pretty sure that is 24 frames per second. They worked really hard on that, and they drew it all by hand, right? So that is some fantastic 24 frames per second animation. But we also have the counterpart of things like Stardew Valley, where it's just kind of like, I don't know, like 3 frames per second. But it works really well too. You don't need too much information. You're just kind of running and walking and things like that. And it doesn't have to be the smoothest animation just to show exactly what you need. So yeah, that is my argument for frames per second, and take from that what you will. Here we go. And next up, we're going to talk a little bit about simple character design. So this slightly connects to the 12 principles of animation with appeal. And I wanted to start off by saying, like, everybody out there who's like, I can only draw stick figures. Oh my gosh, please, please do not worry. We all were there. Like, everybody who's an artist started off drawing stick figures, and we just took practice and time to get to drawing other things, right? So don't limit yourself, and like don't talk down on yourself. If you're drawing stick figures, amazing. I think it's great that you're out here trying and doing what you can. So let's do it. Let's draw stick figures today. Embrace those limitations. I feel like a lot of the best designs come from character designs, best character designs come from people who are very limited in what they can do. And sometimes it's like, oh, I can only really draw like a spherical shape, and I put a little smiley face on it, and it makes a very cute, appealing character. So honestly, embrace that. I think it's a fantastic way to still be really creative and find ways around what you want to do. So additionally, in the case of animation, the simpler you make a character, the easier the animation is going to be. So if there are less elements on a character, the easier it's going to be to animate. So Kirby's only got like 2 eyes and a mouth and maybe some little blushy cheeks, right? So that's like 5 things on a face. Pretty good, pretty good. This character here with the red bandana only got 2 eyes and a red bandana. That's only 3 things, and that will drastically lower things like scope, and it will be so much easier to animate, especially if you're not used to animating. It can be so hard to keep track of all the different things you need to move. So keeping it limited to like 2 or 3 things is a really, really good way to begin. So I'm a huge fan of dot eyes as well. So if you've got characters that just have dot eyes, like these little guys here, like the cat and the rabbit and the snail here, amazing. I love them. Just give me dot eye characters all the way. Amazing. So that kind of covers the little talk element of this. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. We are going to hop into now getting into some of the workshop section and animating. So what is going to happen is I'm going to share this link that's going to have the presentation on it. And the first thing to do is to design a friend. I've called this designer cutie, but it doesn't have to be cute. You could design like under like a horrific Halloween pumpkin or something like that as well. So you could design a friend. I'm going to switch over to the other tab I've got as well. That will be the workshop tab. Here we go. Okay. I hope that worked. Let me double check. I'm just going to really quickly make sure everything's going okay. I'm just going to check that.
I can jump back in. Everything seems to be going fine.
Is it going okay? Okay.
Yeah, I've shared the link to the slides in the YouTube chat. I've also shared them in the thread that I've made in our Discord
Okay.
for folks that are there. I'll probably share it in another place as well. I'll share it here as well for folks watching along with shapes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Here's the presentation to copy. And were you wanting to check that everything's showing correctly?
Yes. Just wanted to check that I've got the workshop slide up, and then
Yes, I see Google Slides and the little bird character. Is that a bird?
yes, that's
Yeah,
it. That's it. It's my
cool.
angry bird character. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so what we can do is, so if you have the workshop slide and you're in there already, what you can do is you can feel free to just hit the file and make a copy, and you're welcome to just use that, and we'll start animating on there basically. Well, let me just switch over my tabs again. Oh, there's so many tabs. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, feel free to make a copy of it, and we're gonna use this to animate in today. Um, the main thing is, if you're not sure how to do that, it's file, and then you can make a copy, and it will copy into your own Google Drive, and you can have it forever. So what is in this Google Slides? So this has some of my old animations I did for previous versions of this workshop, and there's just some really quick kind of demonstrations of how things can work. This chicken is like the main base chicken. So if you want to use that to start animating with, you're very, very welcome to. And it's got some things, components that are already put together. So the face is grouped together, and this can be a great way to make some kind of 2.5D effects kind of things. But also there are some demonstrations of some of the small rigging things I've added to this as well. So a really quick note is that Google has a default pivot of the middle of the shape, or how it rotates is going to be in the middle of a shape. So it rotates in a kind of awkward way sometimes. So if you do want to offset that, all you need to do is you need to make an extra shape to offset it, and you group it together, and then you can roughly guess where the middle of that's going to be. So if I wanted like a wing to kind of like swing around the body of the bird, then I've just set up this kind of X shape, and you just need to make this shape clear in order for it to look like it's not there. So that is what that is. So on this bird, you have this pivot that rotates at a slightly different point. So if you were wanting to animate things in a slightly different way, like if the bird was like waving or anything like that, that is how you do it. So that is some of the quick rigging things. What we'll do is I have my my dollar store Kirby here. So just to demonstrate designing a character really quick, I will design another dollar store Kirby really fast. So what we've got is we're going to start on a circle. So literally when making a character in Google Slides, I would just use the polygon shapes that they've got, and don't go too wild with it. Make it as simple as you can. So you don't have to animate so many things. So I'm gonna add in this pink color. Let me take away some of these titles and things like that. There we go. So we've got like the round Kirby shape already. I even had like a mouth and two eyes in that one. Maybe I could like kind of not have those in this one. Maybe Kirby only has a mouth. Let's see. I will just have a go first. So we're gonna put in the little arms. So we're gonna keep it really simple. We're just gonna make Kirby's arms little circles. And I'm gonna copy this one over here. And for now, I wouldn't worry too much about like if things are aligned or whatever. You can make them roughly in the middle, and that's okay too. And we'll get in 2 more circles to make some feet. There we go. Whoop. Here we go. Oh, that was the fill over here. Oh, I forgot to mention actually. Sorry. This file is also set up to have a transparent background. So if you're not sure how to do that, if you've made a whole new Google Slides thing and you're not sure how to do it, this is how you can change it to be transparent. So if you go into the slide, change background, you can change it in here to have a transparent background. And I think it's in page setup where you can change the size of it as well. So this is, I think it's 500 by 500 pixels already. So you can set up like what kind of resolution you'd like your animations to be here as well. Here we go. So we've got Kirby's feet coming in. I might just send it back. So if we right click it, we can also change the order, send back, and I'll put the feet behind. This is really, really jank, Kirby. It's okay. It's no problem. Here we go. Okay, and once you've made this, you might start to see, oh gosh, these pivots are not in the right place. So it can be really, really annoying when you first do this. The hands are not too bad. You can kind of just rotate them to be in the right place. But the feet, they will need to be kind of rotated first and then squashed in a different way to make the feet. So you need to rotate them into the right place first, ideally, and then you can re-squish them into the shape that you want. There we go. I know they're slightly different, 2 different sizes at the moment, but that's okay. I'm going to embrace the imperfections. Okay, so we've got our dollar store Kirby. Tesco's finest Kirby. Okay, so we're gonna get some eyes. Let's definitely get some eyes. I think I feel a little bad if Kirby doesn't have any eyes. And we'll get in just some dot eyes will work for me. Here we go. Cute. And maybe this time I might put in cheeks, but I will group them with the eyes. I didn't put in cheeks in my other dollar store Kirby, so maybe today is the day. We're gonna go a little more complex than normal. It's going against the rules. Here we go. So we've got some little blushies. Okay. And let's just take away the line around it. Here we go. Cute. If you did want to get a little more complex, like if you wanted to add in a little shine in the eye, you can also do that, and we can group it so that will not necessarily add too much lift to it. This is maybe the best Kirby I've made. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Cute. Okay, it's happening. Kirby is here. And we're just gonna bring this to the front, I think. I think the eyes should be on top of the little cheeks. Okay, and these cheeks are not really showing up. Is that too red? Kirby's really blushing. Okay, we'll go for like the color of the same color as the feet, this one. And then we'll make the feet red. Clown feet Kirby. Here we go. All right. We've got Kirby here. It's slightly looking like eye bags. Okay, that's fine. So let's get in the winning smile. Where is Kirby's smile? Should we do like a little triangle smile today? Oh, no, that was not right. Let's find something else. What do we have? How did I find that semicircle earlier? My last one. Okay, this one looks good. I think this is the one I used previously. Okay, if you want to lock the rotation to like kind of useful angles, like 180 and 90, just hold shift. Here we go. Here we go. And transparent. And there's the smile. Amazing. Kirby's kind of looking quite tired. I'm not sure how this happened. Okay, so I'm going to group the eyes, like the eye shine and the eyes together. There we go. Maybe I should group the cheeks too. I'll leave the cheeks. I'll leave the cheeks. It could be a case where we need to separate them. Okay. Is it a little Kirby's quite intimidating. So what we're gonna do then is we're now gonna animate Kirby doing a little jump. So I've already done it over here. So what you can do is to flick between the frames of your animation, you want to use the up and down arrow keys, and you can see with a little bit of magic, you can get a cute jump. And this is mostly just utilizing squash and stretch, and there is some anticipation involved too. And if you check through the frames of like this bird, these 3 frames are actually like a running animation. So with some little bit of movement and a little bit of magic, you can actually make a fair few movements here. So let's have a go at doing another jump. So I'm going to kind of copy and paste this frame. So this is going to be my base frame. 20 will be my base. And I'm going to put Kirby on the ground here. Here we go. Okay, so Kirby is starting off just standing and chilling. We're going to copy this same frame. So the way I'm copying is just Control C and Control V, but you can also right click, copy and paste as well. And then we're going to start to bring in, I think we're going to do a little bit of anticipation. So anticipation's always great for making sure you're telling the player that something's about to happen. So if we get Kirby squishing down a bit, maybe the arms are like going up like this. I feel this is every time I do this, I feel like Kirby is so cursed. So we got Kirby squishing. Maybe the feet come out a little bit too.
Could I ask you a quick question right now, Charlotte?
Yeah.
So when you're doing this kind of animation, how do you? So you just immediately went, okay, so we're going to squash Kirby down and stretch them out, and his arms
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah.
go up. How do you get a feel for what is most natural to do to signal that anticipation? Is it just through practice, or do you think about it on yourself if you were jumping? How do
A
you do
little
that?
bit, yeah. So for Kirby is a very forgiving character because Kirby has infinite like volume.
Right.
So, um, if you are doing a game that has more like close to realism kind of volume, so like if you're doing like human characters and things like that, yeah, it's probably good to take some reference and have a look at how you might crouch down and
Mhm.
jump. Um, but if you're doing kind of more abstract characters like Kirby or like anything else that's kind of similar, yeah, I would kind of feel it out and see what it
Mhm.
might look like to you. So not every character is going to squash like Kirby does. It
Mhm.
might be that your character squashes in more uneven ways or something like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it depends on your character and also what you're trying to achieve with your game.
And I suppose that's a bit like also applying the what was that other principle called exaggeration of like you could think about it on yourself and then think, okay, what's like an exaggeration of me jumping, like throwing
Yeah,
my arms way up in the air and stretching out sideways when I squish down.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So you can exaggerate your own body, but then even when you go into taking it to drawing, you can
Mhm.
exaggerate it even further. So you can like stretch out limbs, stretch out legs, and things like that. And you'll be surprised because it only appears for 1 frame. So even
Right.
if you make it look very odd,
Yeah.
they will only be there for a frame. So yeah, go absurd with it, and you can always make it a bit less as well if you go
Great.
too
Thank
far.
you.
No problem, no problem. Yeah, so we are plotting out. We've got the anticipation here, and we could kind of follow one of the principles as well, actually, because I was gonna just do straight ahead today, but maybe we could do a bit of pose to pose. So I'm just gonna oh gosh, I'm gonna just move Kirby's face down a little bit. This is very cursed indeed. This is very cursed indeed. Oh goodness. Here we go. And we're gonna put the arms up here. Okie dokie. So that's the anticipation frame we've got. Let's go for a jump frame. So what I'm going to do is I might take the original frame. So I'm going to Control C, Control V that one. And we're going to go up to the top of the box here. And then maybe in games, occasionally you do need to animate on the spot as well. So sometimes you don't even need to kind of move within the box. Maybe you just kind of stay on the spot as well. Yeah, we can definitely do that too. Sometimes you can apply kind of like the height and like the distance of things within the game. But for today, for illustration purposes, we'll do a bit of height to it. So Kirby at the top of the jump. Let's do a squash move. So maybe in this time Kirby's arms are a bit more in, and we can drag in the shape a little more. Here we go. And yeah, maybe so depending on your character, you could have facial features kind of just sitting off of a body. Like it could be quite surreal and quite abstract sometimes. And that's totally okay. Like I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you're trying to make something fast and you're trying to make it work as well, it's okay to kind of get a bit weird. It's trying to get a bit weird with it today. So I'm gonna make this one a little odd. This is gonna be, let me put in Kirby's cheeks a bit, maybe over here as well. Oh gosh, it's looking mega cursed. I've never done one so cursed ever. Oh gosh, did that ungroup?
That reminds me of the thing in, I think in a lot of anime, like eyes will appear over people's hair.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you know why that's a technique they use, or
I think it's for clarity.
so you can still see their expression?
Yeah, I think so. So even the edgiest anime character will sometimes have an
Hmm.
eye appear over their hair because you
Like
just need to see what they're feeling.
the most emo character with their hair covering their
Yeah.
face. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. I think yeah, like emotion, the emotional kind of journey of someone is more important than the aesthetics sometimes. So yeah, if your character's getting a little goofy, that's okay. That's totally fine. Okay, here we go. So we've got whoop, boop. Okay, we are getting that. This is the most absurd Kirby animation I've done yet. So I'm very excited about this. Okay. So we've got the jump here and the land. I'm gonna might fudge this a little bit and just add in, use the same frame as the anticipation as the landing, but I'm just gonna slightly change it.
We've just had a question in the chat as well. Is it okay if I ask you them as they come through?
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
great.
Yeah.
So Jack Griffin in the chat has asked, is there anything we can do to mitigate against design changes? For example, say we wanted to add more detail to Kirby, um, then we'd have to go through and edit all the animation frames as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you can do to mitigate
Mitigate
that?
design.
Maybe not in Google Slides, but maybe in other applications?
It's a good question because I'd actually say in Google Slides it might be quite easy if you have
Oh.
like a design change that you're like, oh, I want to add a hat to Kirby,
Mm,
and then you could like very quickly kind of add one in with lots of random shapes in Google
mm.
Slides. Um, but unfortunately, I think design changes are one of the things that are very hard to mitigate. If the only way you can really mitigate it is by designing very early on and deciding that this is what I want the character to look like. And if there are changes to it, you can always think of ways that you can work around it. So if it was like, I want Kirby to be a bit more emo, maybe you could change the eye shape instead of like adding a whole new thing to the
Mhm,
character or changing the color of a character or something
mhm.
like that. There are ways that you could maybe address like the change that you need without having to change the whole thing.
I suppose you could probably also split parts of the character out into like kind of separate entities that you can animate separately. So if you
That's
want to add hats and change the hats, it could be a completely separate like animation. Although that probably gets quite complicated, right? If you've got animations that involve both of those entities together, you might
that
need
is
to animate.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if they are interacting, that's when it gets like kind of difficult. Maybe a
Yeah.
hat is not a good example because you could potentially just have an image of a hat just kind of
Mhm.
like floating next to a character at any point.
Yeah.
But yeah, when things start interacting, so like, oh, if you wanted to add loads of weapons to a character and things like that,
Mhm.
yeah, those will exponentially increase scope.
Yeah.
Things like
Or even if like if after the jump the hat like does a little it like flips in the air as it lands on their head or
that.
something. Like that might suddenly be really hard to do if you're trying to swap out the hat for a different hat. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, but if you were gonna do a hat in this case, I would probably animate it separately,
Mhm.
or yeah, like you could probably quite quickly make a little shape of a hat, group it together, and then just kind of make it spin in Google Slides without too much trouble.
Great, thank
So
you.
No problem, no problem. Please, yeah, keep the questions coming. I hope if you're having a go at this, let me know how it's going. Okay, so we've got the base kind of animation here. We've got our pose to pose. I'm gonna put in the final kind of settling animation here. Oh my goodness, Kirby is so cute. Okay, so now we have basically the 3 poses of the animation ready. And then what we can do is, because we're doing pose to pose, we can start filling in some of those frames. So this is a good one to do next, as we're going to do some slight ease in and ease out here. We'll have this frame kind of be similar to the last one. So I copied it and I'm just going to start bringing Kirby in a bit as a whole and stretching them out upwards like this. Here we go. So yeah, this has taken I animate on different softwares, and I love the simplicity of Google Slides. So I know sometimes it's just so nice to be able to move little shapes around and rotate them, and it doesn't have to be so complex sometimes. Here we go. So we've got the little movement here. We've got the jump. At the top of the jump, it's always nice to have a little bit of settle at the top. So she's kind of settling into a new shape up here. Whoop. Oh, Kobe is so strange in this one. I'm not particularly liking the shape of these eyes. So I'm going to actually take these ones away. I'm going to bring in the more regular ones over here. Here we go. I'm just going to make this smile a bit more wide again. Here we go. This is looking a bit more normal. As normal as Kirby can get, I guess. I'll bring in the little legs as well, I think. That's good. Here we go. Okay, so we've got the whoop. Nice. And then we got the falling. So before the fall, we could always do with a little stretch before you squash. So stretch before you squash like this. I'll bring this one down to the bottom. I'm also going at like supersonic speed at the moment. So please take your time when animating. I think as you animate more and more, you'll start to naturally incorporate more things like the 12 principles of animation into what you do. So yeah, don't worry too much about it though. I would really rather you get some frames down and have a go at it, rather than worrying about like, oh, if I've really achieved enough squash and stretch in this, or is there enough exaggeration in this. It's so much better to get your frames in, have had a go at it, and like seeing what works with you and what doesn't, and like actually getting some art down is so much better than worrying about if it's perfect, especially in games. So we're almost there actually, I think. So if I just flick through, I mean, the previous Kirby I did has such soulless eyes. It's actually so scary. Here we go. Oh, let me zoom out a bit. I think it's looking quite good there. So, boop, 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 boop. Yes. Okay. Okay. I think we could do maybe a little settle at the end. Oh, I think that's needing another frame actually. So if I flick through these, I think the fall is too fast. So maybe we actually need one like here, and then another one that's closer to the ground like here. Here we go. And we can start bringing the legs back out a bit like this. Here we go. So she's touching the floor now. Kirby be jumping. Okay. I hope if you're having a go, I hope you're doing well. Let me know how you're getting on. And we're going to move the eyes. Oh, they're so far apart. Oh, God. Kirby, are you okay? Okay. Oh, no. Brilliant. Here we go. Yeah, Kirby looks so tired. Maybe I made like a really tired Kirby today. Okay. Here we go. This is looking a little funky, but it's okay. Maybe that's a part of the stretch. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Okay, let's have a quick grind through these. Starting from this frame. There we go. It's looking quite good. I might do another settle. You can see we've only got like 9 minutes to go of this. So I'm gonna do another settle. Here we go. Alrighty. So once we've landed and we're back in, we can do like a teensy weensy, like, whoop. The movement is still following through. Maybe move up the arms a little bit. A little movement in the feet. Here we go. So we're doing a little and a settle. Okay, let's see how that looks. That's pretty good, I think. Okay, so as a whole, this is the Kirby jump animation we've got. This has some anticipation because Kirby's ducking down. We've got a lot of squash and stretch. And I guess there's some exaggeration too because we've got squash and stretch. And then we've got a little bit of follow through as well. So that is the jump animation. So unfortunately, Google Slides, exporting out of Google Slides is a bit of a pain. You can only really download things frame by frame, which is really annoying. Hopefully one day they will do like bulk exporting or whatever. But yeah, you can export PNG images out of here. So if I will for this jump, I would export like 21 to 30. So that's how many frames? Oh my gosh, that's so many frames already. That's like 9 frames. So that's 9 frames. And I would chuck that into whatever game engine you're using, and you can use that to make a little animation out of it. I used to do like a Unity section of this, but like opening Unity takes so long nowadays that I can't do it anymore. So yeah, that is how I would do it though. You can export it into your downloads and then import them back into your game engine of choice. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. That is how I would animate a little Kirby. And I'm happy to take some more questions or like any other things you want to chat about in terms of like making arts or doing animation in general.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charlotte. That was wonderful. Everybody in chat was, I don't think anybody was expecting to have a presentation like this.
No
And people are blown away by like the fact that they can use Google Slides to do this.
Yeah.
And I was actually, one of my questions was going to be like, okay, but can we get this out of Google Slides and into something else? And you've just shown that it is possible. I guess it's slightly clunky, but it's definitely doable.
It is clunky. It's clunky. But yeah, that's why I recommend like using don't do too many frames. And like keep it really simple, and it won't be too bad. So yeah, definitely don't be exporting like 30 frames out of this because it will take you a long time.
So here's a quick question for you. Have you actually used Google Slides to do animations in games you've released, or do you mostly use it as a kind of way to do like kind of prototype some ideas, or just to have some fun?
I haven't used it in any games I released, but I would really like to try it because I have to usually for games that I release, I have very complex like characters going on. So Google Slides is no good for complex characters. But for my own game ideas, I would really like to do it because I really stand behind this, and I think it's such a great cute way to make things. So yeah, definitely watch this space for more Google Slide animations on the way.
It could even be a little bit of a marketing thing. This entire game was made in Google Slides.
Yeah. That'd be great.
So another question I was wanting to ask is, so we've learned about making animations in Google Slides. What would you recommend to oh gosh, this cat's gonna start climbing all over the desk. What would you recommend to a beginner animator as like other software to try out?
I would really recommend Procreate as a animation kind of beginner thing. If you can get yourself an iPad and then get Procreate, the way they handle animation on that is so lovely and simple that I highly recommend that. So anything similar to that, I think there's like Sketchbook and things
Mhm.
like that are free
Mhm.
on iPad. So yeah, anything that kind of really simplifies it to showing you what frames you're on, like not really giving you like a full timeline or anything like
Mhm.
that. They're really great for feeling out what animation is and what like timing is and things like that because they're all really important to do when you're first starting out, but it can be
Mhm.
so hard to envision and understand.
Right.
Yeah.
I was also wondering about whether you ever, like, I wouldn't say I've done any particularly fancy animations myself, but there have been times when I've done some pixel art and tried to
Mm,
animate it a little bit. But sometimes what I find is that you end up just making like tiny adjustments and you can never get it feeling quite right. And you're
mm,
making a tiny
mhm,
adjustment over here, and it's like, no, that looks too fast. It doesn't look like it's squashing enough or
mhm,
whatever. Do you ever
mhm.
find yourself in that kind of spiral of like never figuring out exactly how to do it? And what's your approach for dealing with that kind of situation?
That's such a good like point that like sometimes you get very trapped like in what you're
Hmm.
animating and you my my advice is to not hold it too dear and like just chuck that away and try again. Because like I think when you get very bogged down with looking at one piece of animation and not really understanding why it's working, it's probably best to give it another try. It might be something to do with timing. There might be you might have layered so many things on top of that one animation that is really hard to pinpoint exactly what is wrong. So I would try again, or I did. You could also show it to some friends and see what they feel because often other eyes are better than yours when you're an artist. So yeah, giving it to other people for a different perspective will really help out figuring out what's wrong.
Great advice. Thank you so much. I think we'll leave that there. If there are any more questions, folks can take them to the Discord, thinkygames.com/Discord. I've said that so many times. So once again, thank you, Charlotte. That was a great talk. It was great to have something
No
so different to a lot of the other talks we've had. So thank you very much.
problem at all. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoy and let me know if you do any animating in Google Slides. Oh, yeah, that's it. Go for it.
Thank you.